Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Ril Gerald Quinn. On this 1st of December, as we enter the final month of the year, um, Christmas season, a lot of sports, busy, one of the more busiest sports weekends that you will ever see that we just completed. We will complete come Monday night. Of course, the Monday night game is happening as I record this podcast. Um, We're gonna get right to it. There's a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on. We'll get right to the game of the week in the NFL. As always, before I get to that, as always, you can follow this podcast anywhere where podcasts are available. I certainly will put my YouTube channel up in my stories and Instagram and what have you. And again, follow this podcast, like, share this podcast where any podcasts are available. Game of the week. Um, Very important game for both teams. Obviously, Denver gets the win in overtime over the Commanders, 27-26. Commanders had a chance to win and would have won if not for a just spectacular play by soon-to-be All-Pro, soon-to-be All-Pro Nick Bonino, who made just a spectacular play, knocking down the ball. That would have been a sure walk-in touchdown, or excuse me, walk-in extra point or two-point conversion for the Commanders. Obviously, Denver wants the number one seed, wants the best record, trying to obviously keep pace with the New England Patriots. So from that standpoint, that's the Denver standpoint. Obviously, how important of a game that was for them. But for the Commanders, and as a Commanders fan, I thought this game was critical for them, despite the fact that they fell to 3-9, despite the fact that even though mathematically they have not been eliminated from the playoffs, they're not making the playoffs with 9 straight losses. The reason why it was important because uh, the Commanders minus the Dolphins game and the Bears game during this streak have been getting their asses kicked. And they've looked lifeless at times. A lot of times they've been out of these games in the first half. Like Seattle, Detroit, Dallas, those games were over in the first half. Kansas City, not so much. Kansas City ran away in the second half, and that actually was a semi-competitive game for about 2.5 quarters. But three of those games, Washington had just been outclassed and didn't seemingly belong on the field with those teams. And I thought for a culture standpoint, for a moving into the off season in the right note, I thought they needed a game like this. Now, 3-9 is 3-9, but you've had Jay Daniels, of course, has been on the mend for most of the season. Uh, we know what type of injuries they've had at the defensively, and we know that the defense wasn't that good to begin with. But this was by far to me their best performance of the season, even better than the Charger performance, where their last win, where they went into Los Angeles and beat the Chargers to go 3-2, and that they haven't won a game since. So I thought this was an important performance for them moving forward. They have opportunities. Um, 2 games against Philadelphia, a game against Dallas. So they have some opportunities here to kind of like to play a role of spoiler, especially at Dallas. They won't spoil for it. They can knock Philadelphia from being possibly getting a home game or maybe even having a chance at home field advantage if they beat them twice. But they definitely have a chance to ruin Dallas's chance to make the playoffs. But you have to have something to build off moving forward, going to 2026. So that performance last night, I thought, despite the fact that they gave up over 400 yards of offense to Denver, I thought defensively they held Denver's offense down from a standpoint of running the ball. Denver wants to run the ball. They forced Bo Nix to throw the ball like 45 times. That's not what Denver wants to do. They had to do that because they could not run the ball effectively with their effectively And look, a lot of that, some of that is due to J.K. Dobbins, of course, missing, but some of that is due to a lot of that was due to the defensive line play of Washington. I thought Washington's secondary, for the most part, I thought played very well. Um, Again, considering that they gave a bunch of yardage, I know they both defenses started getting tired towards the end, and offensively, I thought Washington really, controlled the game or at the line of scrimmage in terms of running the football. I thought the offensive line, Washington was spectacular. Only giving up 2 sacks to that defense, you're doing something, especially when your quarterback throws the ball 50 times. So I thought Washington's offensive line played great, and frankly outplayed Denver's offensive line. To be honest with you, they outrushed Denver considerably. Um, Look at these numbers here. Yeah, they outrushed Denver in that game, 143 to 87. So sometimes in the NFL, when you win, you lose. When you lose, you win. This was, if there's any such thing as a good loss for a team, this was a good loss for the Commanders. And again, you have to have some positive momentum. All these games matter in the NFL. There's no tanking. There's all these games, even if you're not going to the playoffs. Washington, again, 3-9. You have 5 games left. Um, Listen, you can only go what 7-10. Excuse me, that you have 6 games left. Um, I mean, 5 games left. Yeah, 5 games left. So they have a chance. They can be 8-9. That would be a disappointment, but you have 2026. You have to see what you're going to have for next year. You have to see who you want to keep, possibly keep for next year. All that stuff is in play right now. And again, you don't want to go into next year. You don't want to have a you know 5-12, 4-13, three and definitely not three. You don't want to be 3-13 or 3-14, something like that. You want to go in fighting. You want to go in setting a culture for 2026 when hopefully you can have your quarterback for all 17 games and see what needs to take place in the offseason. There was a lot of energy in that stadium. A lot of Denver fans. Something that I just hope as we move forward, if you're a Commanders fan, that will cease once the Commanders are consistently a team that's a playoff bound team. Teams that consistently make the playoffs, like Green Bay, like Kansas City, they don't have other fan bases taking over their stadiums. Those teams don't. The only team that had that at times was the Dallas Cowboys. But those teams, if you're the Green Bay Packers, the Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, those teams that are making the playoffs every year, that are contending every year, they don't have other fans taking over their stadium. But when you haven't won anything for an entire generation, when you haven't had I mean, Washington hasn't made the playoffs in back-to-back years since like the first Joe Gibbs era, or maybe even North. I want to say even did North Turner have? I don't think North Turner had a year where they made the playoffs in back-to-back years. No, I don't think North Turner had a year. So you got to go back to the first. You got to go back to what 91. You got to go back to 1990-91 for the last time that Washington made the playoffs in back-to-back years. So again, it was a fun game to watch, entertaining game. It was an exciting game, especially down the stretch. You get Terry McLaurin back; he had a big game. Um, they ran the ball well. And again, I'm not penalizing Denver considering what has transpired in the NFL this year. I know a couple people were knocking Denver. Look, these team play. Denver's a very good team. Denver is a team that certainly can get to the Super Bowl, and we'll talk more about that. Um, about how wide open it is in the NFL. So I don't hold that game against the Denver Broncos by any stretch of imagination. I still think they're a I think they're a very good team. They're a well coached team. We know what they can do on defense. They can run the ball and Bo Nix has proven to be a franchise caliber quarterback with the first 2 years of his career. He's going to have 20 wins in the first 2 years of his career. That's nothing, and they don't have great talent. They have nice talent. They don't have overwhelming talent. So that's nothing to shake it to. That's not nothing to for Bo Nix to have 20 wins his first 2 years and 20 wins and counting his first 2 seasons of his career. And he's going to have back-to-back years where he's going to be a quarterback of a playoff team. Again, that team has some very good talent. They don't have over like I said, they don't have great talent by any stretch of the imagination. Deep dive, we're going to go around the league. So Thanksgiving, you had two very good games. The last one was a dud, but still told you about where this season was going. And then Friday, you just had a shocker in Philadelphia. And I would again listen, and I guess I have to give the Bears credit at this point in time. That loss to the Bears doesn't feel as bad as if you're a Commanders fan. And that's where the Commanders misfortune started with that Bear loss back on October 10th. The Commanders haven't won since, and I don't believe the Bears have lost since. Maybe the Bears have lost one game since then, but the Bears have been playing at an extremely high level since that game to that jump started their season. But I'm looking at this NFL season, and you look at where we were at in August and September when the season started. We were talking about basically the usual suspects: Philadelphia, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Detroit to a lesser extent, Green Bay to a lesser extent, right? As the teams that were the Super Bowl favorites, Buffalo, of course, as the teams that could possibly go to the Super Bowl, that could win the Super Bowl. I picked Buffalo. I picked Baltimore to get to the Super Bowl. And I was looking back at the last 10 years of teams of like has there, we see it in baseball we see it in baseball all the time. We see it in college basketball. Um we saw it in the NBA this year, in the NBA this year, or this past year with the Indiana Pacers. There are certain years where you have a surprise guest that reaches the championship stage. Football, that has not been the case for the most part over the last decade. The three biggest surprises to reach a Super Bowl, by my estimation: 17 Eagles, 20 Bucks, and 21 Bengals. The Bengals, by far, out of those three teams, are the biggest surprise. The only reason the Eagles were a surprise in 17, because after Carson Wentz got hurt, no one thought that Nick Foles could lead them to the Super Bowl. At least, like, no one like that, outside that locker room. And the 20 Bucks had the greatest quarterback of all time. But they did win three straight wild card games. So those were the surprises to get to the Super Bowl. And of course, Eagles and Bucks both won the Super Bowl. But for the most part, out of 20 teams, you had, like I said, three surprises. So that means you had 17 teams that were expected to either get to the Super Bowl. I say that I say all that to say that this year, not only you could have possibly one surprise, you're gonna get at least one surprise guess. You may get two. If I'm Tampa Bay, if I'm Houston, if I'm Denver, if I'm San Francisco, if I'm Seattle, if I'm the Bears, I'm telling you right now, I absolutely think that I can get to and possibly win the Super Bowl. If I'm New England, the top of the league right now is, I'm not gonna say it like it's in transition right now. This could be one of these years where you steal a Super Bowl. Um, we saw this in the NBA in 22, right? The Warriors get hot in the playoffs. The league at the point, Boston wasn't ready. The West was weak. Steph Curry was, top five player at the time. Definitely top five player. Maybe was top three or four. Had the right mix, and they won a championship. So that's how I feel about where the NFL is going this particular year. Like, you don't like with what's going on in Philadelphia and Kansas City. Don't like Philadelphia came in last year. Philadelphia was dominant. Kansas City was 15-2. It was coming off back-to-back Super Bowls. There's no team right now that scares that remotely scares you in the NFL. No team at all. I don't know if this Philly thing can get fixed. Kansas City is on life support. Baltimore, like Lamar Jackson's not right now, physically. He just like he can't. He like he has not. Now he ran the ball decently against Cincinnati. Made a couple had a couple of decent runs, but he's not playing well right now, and they have zero chance. If Lamar Jackson's not is not playing like an MVP caliber guy player, despite how well their defense has played, they have no chance to remote to do anything. They might win that division because the division's horrible, but to win three straight games is that's not going to happen. Even if they get one home game, and it's looking like more than likely that they're going to have to win at least two. Would have to win at least two road games to get to a Super Bowl. So right now, this is as open as I've seen the NFL like in well over a decade. Matter of fact, I mean, to be honest with you, if you're talking about the last surprise team to win the Super Bowl, I think you got to go back all the way back to like the 2011 Giants, like that, like the you know that took out Green Bay and ended up beating New England again, even though that the second time they beat New England was not considered to be an upset like it was certainly in 2007. But you're going to have at least one surprise visitor that's playing in the Super Bowl this year. And listen, it's exciting. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's exciting. Like as long as you get as long as you don't get bad, mediocre quarterbacking in the Super Bowl, which I don't think. I still think you have to have a above average quarterback to make it to the Super Bowl this year. You're not making it to the Super Bowl with a mid quarterback for the most part. Baker, if Bo Nix makes it to the Super Bowl, he is a franchise guy that would be head towards becoming a star player. If Baker Mayfield makes it, Baker Mayfield was playing at an MVP type level. We know he's an above average quarterback. So you're not going to have a quarterback. Uh, you're not going to have Brad Johnson, like a Brad Johnson like quarterback, get to and win a Super Bowl. That's not going to happen. But right now, this is going to be a wild December. There are a number of divisional games. Uh, Again, I think Kansas City. I'm not putting the nail completely in the coffin, but I'm telling you right now that the hammer is ready. Not the hammer is ready. Like I'm telling you, they we getting with if you're a Cleveland, if you're a Kansas City fan, all hope is not lost, but you're preparing for the worst. To be honest with you, like that thing. And again, the thing about Kansas City, it's not like they're playing bad. Like it's not like they've fallen off the cliff. That was definitely a winnable. Dallas is playing well right now on the road. That certainly was a winnable game, but that room for error is not what it once was, and all it takes is Chris Jones not being the player that he once was, Kelsey not being the player that he once was, the defense slipping a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, and that's it. And you look up and you're 6-6, and you're fighting for your playoff lives. Like Kansas City has a ton of work. Kansas City is going to need a lot of help um, to make the playoffs. They're going to need a lot of help. Um, as far as I had to laugh at what is transpiring with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just the outrage and some of the comments that were made by the players after the game. Aaron Rodgers in particular, T.J. Watt. Here's what I said about the Steelers. We knew when the Steelers were winning all these games early. If you watched how they were winning these games, we knew that this shit was not going to last. When you looked at them and you looked at the numbers, when you look at how they were winning games, you were like, this is not a very good football team. So what's happening right now is not even remotely a surprise to me. I'm surprised they actually took this long for the bomb for them to collapse. They are not a good football team. They're not very talented. They have probably one great player in T.J. Watt, a very good player in DK Metcalf as a receiver. He's still very good. You have a quarterback that's played okay this year, but he's fucking 55. He's 70 years old. I actually felt bad for Aaron Rodgers last night to be after that hit. He got cracked by Joey Bosa. Like that, I actually, and I'm not the way Aaron Rodgers has been moving. You know, I could care less for his politics and these weirdo conspiracy theories that he's had. I'm not, and certainly it didn't end well in Green Bay with how he was just moving as in terms of his leadership or lack thereof. But always been a fan of his, like his skill set. Is undeniable. The guy's an all time great. Well, first ballot Hall of Fame, all time great quarterback. But I actually felt bad for the first. This is one of the first times in his career I actually felt bad for him after that hit. Because it looked like it was like, yo, bro, you just not supposed to be out here, man. Like you fucking too old to be taking hits like this. But you can blame and listen, the low hanging fruit is to blame Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, let me remind people, Mike Tomlin does not draft the players. That organization, uh, from a structural standpoint, from a scouting standpoint, from they are nowhere near what they once were when Bill Cowher was there, or when Mike, or in the early, or in the first part of Mike Tomlin's tenure. They're just not. They just don't have the. They just not. They just not have drafted quality players. They've taken a lot of hits, swings, and misses as far as home runs. Let's get Mika Fitzpatrick. Let's get Jalen Ramsey. Let's get DK Metcalf now. Let's get Aaron Rodgers. They've done. This is not how Pittsburgh became Pittsburgh in terms of from going back to the '70s, going back to how they in terms and going back to when they got back to a championship level team in the '90s and in the '90s and early 2000s. This is not how they were built in terms of how they're moving right now. So that talent get there, their level of talent is just not there. I if Cleveland had any type of quarterback, I could make a case that they might have some of the worst talent in that division. Probably Cleveland, out because offensively Cleveland is a joke, but they don't that they're just not that they are they have a mediocre football team from a talent standpoint all around from top to bottom. From top to bottom, they have mediocre talent on that team. It's just not they're just not that good. So I'm not the least bit surprised what's happening in Pittsburgh, and no one who root for this. If you're a Steelers fan, you shouldn't be surprised. If you watch Pittsburgh all year long, you should not be surprised. But there's some exciting football coming up in the month of December. A number of divisional games. Houston all of a sudden looks like one of the scariest teams in the league. I thought C.J. Stroud played well yesterday, coming off missing the over a month. That team has a championship defense. We know this. We know that they're well coached. We know that they have playoff experience. Almost, they were right there with Kansas City last year. So that team gets in the playoffs. That's a team that with that defense and a quarterback who's not afraid. That's a team that I don't want to see. So it's gonna be fun. This last month, you look at the NFC right now, and hey, listen, I'm not going to overreact to the Rams losing. I think Carolina is definitely improved. Carolina 7-6. Carolina is a pretty good team this year. You had some bad weather. We saw. I mean, Carolina beat Dallas down in Carolina. Carolina again. Bryce Young has been respectable this year. The running back is good. They got some nice pieces in Carolina. So I'm not, the Rams were due for a kind of a dud, and I wouldn't even call that a dud, but you know, Stafford throws a pick six, those two interceptions. The fumble wasn't on him. That was a great play by the defensive player. The strip sack fumble. So not overreacting to that, but look at that division right now. All these races look at the NFC West division. You have three teams that had 9 wins right now. Three teams that had 9 wins. Give Kyle Shanahan, he has to get consideration for coach of the year this year. Kyle Shanahan's coaching his ass off this year. Lost his quarterback for most of the year. I think Mac Jones is actually has actually played better than Brock Purdy. But anyway, um, that team doesn't have the talent that they once had. This is probably the least most talented team that they've had in the last 4 to 5 years. To get that team to 9-4, I give a lot. Again, they came off a bad year last year. I understand, but they were ravaged by injuries, really ravaged by injuries last year. And they've had a few injuries this year. They lost their best defensive player in Warner, who's been an All Pro the last couple of years. But they are a team that that they are, again. That's a team that in the playoffs we know how well coached they are. We know how experienced as far as a team that's won a number of playoff games, have done everything but winning Super Bowl. That's another team that if they get in the playoffs, I would like my chances to possibly get to a Super Bowl. We know that they have been when they get to the playoffs, they do damage. We know that looking at the Kyle Shanahan era in San Francisco. Best of the 21st century. We look at the Heisman Trophy is about, I want to say, December 13th. So we're coming up on the Heisman Trophy soon. Um, to me, when I look at the best of the 21st century, as far as the most impactful Heisman Trophy seasons, this one stands heads and shoulders above everybody. Cam Newton's 2010 season at Auburn, it would be his only season at Auburn, whereas he would just dominate college football and then become the number one pick in the 2011 draft and have a borderline Hall of Fame career. I don't think he's going to the Hall of Fame, but a borderline Hall of Fame career with the Carolina Panthers. This, so he gets to Auburn after a stint with Florida, Blinn College. We don't have to relitigate his story up to that point, but before Cam Newton, you had seen it. There have been a number of running quarterbacks over the course of up until that point in college football. Number of running quarterbacks, but I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback with the combination of size, speed, and just pure athleticism, just a pure freak of nature with that type of power up until the point that Cam Newton came along. Like he had the complete pat, he had the total game, and again, that team was not that talented. That Auburn team goes 14-0 in the SEC. They beat six ranked opponents. That team was not a talented team. Uh, that was oozing with NFL draft picks. As a matter of fact, only three other players got drafted that were on that team. Two of them were seventh round picks. The other one was Nick Fairley. Fairley was probably the only first round pick. Was the only guy that was first round outside Cam Newton, of course. He had 50 touchdowns that season combined running and passing. And he just made the game look easy. He it looked again. He looked like a man. He looked like he was playing with somebody's kids. Like it looked like it was just a man amongst boys. Like he's literally running people over. He's running past people. Um, and he's had fun doing it. Just to you know, I think that's when this. I don't think the Superman started. I think the Superman started in college. Um, he goes out there and has had two signature wins that will live forever in SEC lore, and that was uh, at LSU and at Alabama. Like those wins were more memorable than even the national championship game where they were able to get by Oregon, Oregon 22-19. But he was that. I mean, that season to watch this guy play at that level, uh, and think that you can go in the SEC and dominate like that physically was just something that I don't know if we'll ever see a guy. I don't think again I don't think there's been a more valuable player to his team again in the last, forget about 21st century. You might have to go back like how far do we have to go back to find a more valuable player to a college football team when you think about it? Because when you think about how many the champions, most of them teams have been loaded with NFL draft picks. Most college football teams that win championships are have a you know have a boatload of first and second, third round picks on it. Yeah, this Auburn team came into that year. Nobody was talking about Auburn. They were plus 5,000 as far as their odds to win the championship. There were about at least 15, 10 to fit like 10 to 12 teams that had higher betting odds than Auburn in terms of winning a championship. No one's talking about Auburn coming into that season. And again, that game, yeah, the game was well, that was home to LSU, so that was a home game. It was that. So yeah, let me correction on that. That was a home game against LSU, and of course that the Iron Bowl against again the comeback, the magical comeback against 24 nothing against Alabama. Uh, that magical comeback there, and of course they cruised in the SEC championship and were able to take care of Oregon in the national championship. I don't know if we'll see something like this again anytime soon. I think in today's era of college football, you have to have a boatload of talent, a ton of talent to win a national championship. You look at Ohio State last year, especially in the way the college football playoffs are right now, you got to win 4 games. You're not one man is not carrying you to a championship in today the way these playoffs are situated and constructed. So Cam Newton's 2010 season, best of the 21st century. Only got a couple. We had about what 3 podcasts left, so a couple surprises in best of the 21st century as we look back at the best the last 25 years in the world of sports and pop culture. Who won the week? The Oklahoma City Thunder. Don't look now, but they are 20-1, just toying with the NBA. Some of these numbers that they have are like the defensive numbers. Right now, they're only allowing 103 103.6 points per game per 100 possessions. The next closest team is like Houston at like 110. So to give you a sense of how big of a gap that is, Houston at number 2, that's the largest. If you go Houston at number 2, you have to go all the way to the 23rd ranked team to find to find a bigger gap, the same gap. So that's the equivalent of Houston. Houston is like 21 spots ahead of the next team that has that big of a gap in terms of their defensive rating. They are by far in a way the best defensive team in the league. They have the number 1 defense by far, the number 6 offense. Um, Again, off to a 20-1 start. The last time a team had this type of start in the regular season, of course, was the 2015-16 Warriors that started out 24-0. Like the Warriors, like Oklahoma City, the Warriors were also coming off a championship. Steph Curry was coming off an MVP. He of course repeat as MVP. So there's some parallels between those two teams. Um, I frankly think Oklahoma City is probably better, to be honest with you. In terms of all from top to bottom, like I'm not gonna say Shea SGA is better than Steph Curry, prime Steph Curry. I'm not. quite there yet, quite there. But from top to bottom, in terms of depth and quality depth, probably probably a deeper team. So probably a little bit deeper team than what Golden State was, to be perfectly honest with you. The scary thing about it is they're not peaking. I just like Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams just got back. He still has to find has is going to have to find his way. Um, Dort has missed games. Uh, they don't, there's another level for them. That's the scary part. That there's absolutely another level for them. And again, this team right now, I see a poise, I see a focus. I don't have any problem with them. I don't have any problem with them chasing this record, to be honest with you, because they have the kind of depth to where their guys are not playing heavy, going super heavy minutes. Shea Gill SGA has missed a number of fourth quarters. He's only playing 33 minutes a game. He's only 27 years old. Matter of fact, he's scoring almost as many points as he is playing minutes. So again, this is a special team, and it's going to take all right, the type of team to beat them. It's going to take a team that's physical. It's going to take a team that, like I said, the two teams that have the best chance are, to me, in the order, Houston and Denver. A healthy Denver. Denver is banged up right now, but once you get Gordon and Christian Brown back, hopefully they'll be healthy for the playoffs. But having the best player on the floor in Joker can change the series. But Houston, to me, is the type of team with their physicality, their ability to offensive rebound, their perimeter defensive players, that you have to be an anti Oklahoma City. You're not going to you're not going to play better defense than Oklahoma City. You're not going to outrun Oklahoma City from a standpoint of you're not going to be a deeper team than Oklahoma City. You don't have more. They have more talent than anybody from top to bottom. So you have to be their kryptonite from the standpoint. You have to play a contrasting style to how they play. It's kind of like I compare it to like Houston and Golden State in 2018 when Houston was the anti Golden State and almost it damn near almost beat them. And that was Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, all in their primes. And Houston shot all the threes, went to the free throw line. They played excellent defense, won 65 games this year, and damn near almost won the NBA championship. Chris Paul gets hurt. We all didn't play, of course, the last. Didn't play, of course, in game. Got hurt in game 5 and was didn't play in game 6 and 7. But you have to be the anti Oklahoma City. You're not going to beat them at their own game. It's impossible. They do what they do better than anybody in the world by far. And like I said, this team is set up to have a run here. They could possibly get multiple lottery picks. Like that's on the table that they getting up with 2 lottery picks on top of their first round pick that they already have. And they win a game last night against Portland where they kind of were like not going through the motions. Portland has actually played them both decently this year. Well, Portland beat them without half their team the first time. They did. Portland. They destroyed Portland last time they played them, but Portland's not afraid of them. Portland does. Portland played well last night, but SGA in the fourth quarter takes over, and on a night the game was at Portland, a night where most teams would have lost. Like most teams would have chalked that game up. We got a long 11 game win streak. We'll get them. We're good with being 19-2, but not this team. And what SGA is doing right now with this level of consistency, you're talking about 92 straight games of 20 or more points. He's entering Wilt Chamberlain like territory with that. Like there's a legit chance that he breaks that record. There's a legit chance if he doesn't get hurt in a game, he definitely absolutely can break that record. Now, there might be a situation where they're just destroying somebody and the game's over at halftime and he has like 16, 17 points or 14, like 14, 14, 15 points and doesn't really put his foot on the gas in the third quarter. That's also on the table. But, if their games are even semi competitive going into the second half, I don't see a game where he gets under 20, under 25 points, um, let alone under 20 points. We're going to end the program with Mr. Lane Kiffin, the new head coach of the LSU Tigers. So this is a story I've just thoroughly enjoyed following this as the world turns type shit. It is, oh my goodness, everybody's talking about, they've been tired of the speculation. I know why. Why this? I mean, this is beautiful for college football. I love it. I absolutely love it. First of all, let me say this: there are no victims here with this situation. None. Okay. Lane Kiffin, no one wants it. You're not a victim. You should have known that they were not going to let you coach the bowl game, pulling some shit like this, like leaving the team. And I'm not saying he did anything wrong, by the way. You have every right. If another opportunity presents itself, does a better job, you have every right to go to that job. It's just I mean, it's been going on in college forever. Like so, I have no problem with Lane Kiffin leaving Mississippi to go to LSU. LSU is a better job. It's not even about resources. They have a better recruiting base, one of the better recruiting bases in the country, outside of the states of outside of California, Texas, and Florida. LSU probably is the best recruiting state for in terms of talent in the country. To be honest with you, so I have no problem from that standpoint. But you can't have everything. Lane has to know. Dude, you have to know that you are not going to be allowed to coach the team in a playoff game with your foot with you already signed a contract, or if you headed to LSU, like that shit wasn't going to happen. Um, Ole Miss, you're not a victim. I'm sorry. You knew what you were signing up for when Lane Kiffin became your head coach. This guy has been uh, like he's been the Marcus Graham of college football, man. Like what like my to my audience that's under 40, Marcus Graham, of course, was the player in Boomerang. I go back to Boomerang, right? Holly Berry had to know that Marcus Graham was going to cheat on her. She had to know that, right? But guess what, Ole Miss, you ain't no Holly Berry. So this guy, if he watched how Lane Kiffin has moved, this was going to happen. And the bottom line is, you got 6 years out of Lane Kiffin. Six. That is like a 50-year marriage. That's like 25 years for most coaches out of another place. 20 years. For Lane Kiffin to go give you 6 years? Have you watched how Lane Kiffin has moved over the course of his career? This was going to happen. It was only a matter of not if but when. Soon as he had a chance to get a better job. See ya. Like Mississippi, listen, Ole Miss is a very good job. It's not Alabama. It's not LSU. It's not Georgia. Okay. It's not Texas. It's not Michigan or Ohio State. Period. Like it's just not. I'm sorry. Like the Ole Miss. I mean, look at part of the Ole Miss fans were obviously part of, and Kiffin mentioned this. He mentioned this in his press conference. Obviously, there's some hurt from a standpoint. If you know that you're losing a above average coach, I can't call him great because he hasn't won. Like you gotta get to a playoff for me, multiple playoffs for me to call you great. But he's a great offensive mind. He's one of the best offensive minds in football. That's undeniable. We saw what he did at Alabama. We've seen what he's done, what he did at Mississippi. Like turned Mississippi into a perennial winner, double digit wins, double digit winning seasons 4 out of the last 5 years. Got him. It's probably gonna get him to the playoffs this year. No guarantee, because we saw how the committee moved with the Florida State situation last year. No guarantee that Ole Miss is in the playoffs. Don't be surprised by this committee. I think they will, but that's another conversation. But I'm telling you right now, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you had to know that this was eventually going to happen with this dude. You had to know this guy is not going to be monogamous. You're not going to be what the what he said. The dude said, the young reporter said, "What, you can't make a whole housewife." He was right. That's why Lane pulled up on him, because he hit a nerve, hit dogs holler. Lane pulled up because he know that shit was true. You can't if you're asking Lane for a lifetime commitment, no. You're asking Lane to be monogamous as a coach, no. Lane's a player. He's a player. That's it. And I'm telling you right now, LSU, you're happy right now. You should be ecstatic. They were gushing. Oh my goodness, they were gushing in the press conference. They had just landed. You would thought that they landed Nick Saban. I'm telling you, that's not. They were so excited. They are so excited at LSU right now. Like Brian, that's how bad Brian Kelly was, by the way. You get a guy who's never won a championship, never been had up until this year had never been to a college playoff led his team to a college playoff, and has a checkered past. Very, again, great offensive mind. But you would have thought that LSU landed Nick Saban again. That's how excited they were. But that's how bad Brian Kelly was, and how bad it ended with Ed Orgeron as well. Ed Orgeron as well. But I'm telling you right now, if you're LSU, he's going to do the same thing to you. You can hear it right here, right now. It's December 1st, 2025. This will not be Lane Kiffin's last coaching job. I really believe Lane Kiffin is bound to go back to the NFL someday. I really believe that. I would give him three. I think he does probably at the most 3 years, 3 to 4 years, 3 to 4 tops. He's going to leave. This is not going to be his last job in college football. In football, I promise you, it will not be his last job. Like Lane moves like a Gen Zer or even a young millennial. They can't stay. They cannot sit still. They can't stay for a place for a very long time. It's just not in their nature. It's just not in his DNA. So great job. No, LSU. You can be happy, enjoy it while it lasts, and just know that same shit's gonna happen to you. It's just like the woman that think they can change the player. Oh, yeah, I can change him. Okay, all right, we'll see, we'll see. But boy, I love it. I can't wait for LSU Mississippi next year. I can't. I just that game. I just cannot wait for the day, because he's going to be. They hate him so much at Ole Miss. I mean, driving to the airport just to tell him, just to give motherfucker the middle finger. You can drive to the airport to give him the finger and say "fuck you." We hate you. I'm not driving to the airport. Listen. No. I'm sorry. I'm not driving to the airport to try to watch a guy get on the plane. I'm good. Yeah, but that's SEC for you. That is the SEC. Um, listen, I love it. I absolutely love it. And by the way, Lane Kiffin, can you spare us the I was torn. This was a tough decision. Get the fuck out of here. Come on, man. Come on. Come on. The only thing that held this process up was the fact that you were probably trying to convince Keith Carter, can I coach it? Please, can I coach a team? And Keith Carter probably kept saying, no, you can't. No, you can't. It wasn't no tough decision. When Brian Kelly got fired, or when they let Brian relieved of his duties, it was game over. Lane was going to LSU at that point. When there was a vacancy in LSU, that was it. That was all she wrote. I don't because I don't think Lane Kiffin believes that he can win a championship at Mississippi at Ole Miss. To be honest with you, that's why I think that's the number one reason why I think he left. I think that he believes that he took this team as far as he can go, as far as they were going to go to the playoffs. Probably could have had a chance to make it to a Final Four, but I don't believe that he felt like he could win a championship at Ole Miss. And I will say this: the baseline at LSU is a national championship. Baseline. Baseline. I don't care how many 10-win seasons you have. I don't care how many playoff appearances you have. You don't win a championship, you're a failure at LSU. Period. Saban, Orgeron, Les Miles all won championships. So that 10 wins and New Year's Day bowls or college playoffs, that's cute. They want the ring. Period. They want the championship. So that's the bit. So again, I can't wait to see how this plays out. I really can't. Definitely looking forward to it. But to my original point, absolutely no victims, none, no victims in this situation. I'm gonna hold off on the college football playoffs. I want to wait till the playoff rankings come out tomorrow. I'll do a real thoughts, um, a mini. I'll do a mini pod on it, possibly Wednesday or Thursday, possibly Wednesday. But I can tell you right now, the Miami fans, woo, the Miami fans are. You would have thought that Miami was officially eliminated, like they've been given a secret elimination letter by the committee. They are so nervous. Oh, the Miami fans are scared to death. Oh, the Miami Florida the Miami fans are scared, terrified. We'll see what happens. So we'll talk more about that later in the week. That's gonna wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I will see you later this week. I'm out.